Hello, it's me again, and we're going to be reading Genesis 3 in the King James Bible, and we'll be covering over of Genesis 3, basically the serpent's deceptions, God's arrangement with Adam and Eve, and then also the punishment of mankind, and the expulsion from paradise. So let's just dive right in and get going. Now the serpent was more subtle than any other beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Yea, shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God have said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, but God both know that in the day of you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be open, and you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wish, she took of the fruit therefore and did eat, and gave unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. Now, this is Genesis 3 1 through 7. If I just want to let you know, there's a couple things going off in here. So, apparently, the serpent, which may be the devil, is saying, "Hey, eat this fruit." So, why is he trying to make her eat the fruit begin with? What's in it for him? Should be the question. Another question is, well, he kind of did not lie, but he kind of did deceive the person. That's the creepy thing. He didn't really lie, but you know what? He did deceive the person. That's the tricky thing. It's about the beginning of the story of mankind, how you're kind of deceived, but you know what? He didn't really lie because he manipulated. He said, you know what? When she ate it, they didn't really die, but they died later on of old age because they don't have access to the other tree. If you notice, the other tree in the garden is the tree of life. Now, the tree of life represents, I think, you can eat it and you live forever. But they got kicked out, so they don't have access to the tree of life. They weren't told to not eat from the tree of knowledge. And well, the serpent told him, hey, if you eat it, you'd be like gods, knowing good and evil. So there's the hindsight, not hindsight. Then there's added knowledge of good and evil. Well, you know what? Is that really benefit? I really don't want that benefit. But you know what? He was kind of truthful. Uh, you know what? It kind of makes you go, huh? Well, he's kind of right and wrong, but there's deception on. There's different meanings. So we don't know the whole show. We don't know the whole bang. We just got a couple paragraphs basically saying what went on. There could be back doors we don't know about what's going on. But the bottom line is the serpent wanted them eat it to start this whole mix up. Maybe there's something going on with. Of course, we know there's something going on with God and Jesus and the Michael and the archangels. We can find that back in the Revelations. Big battles and all that. But I really don't know how this works. But the serpent cat didn't lie. He deceived, definitely deceived, but and manipulate, yes, because they surely didn't die immediately, but they did die because they don't have access to the tree of life. Sucks to them be them, but but it kind of makes you wonder how manipulated start with this whole story. And a little later on, with the I think it's Matthew 5, where don't quote me on that one, but Jesus says when he was out and fasting for 40 days, we know that the devil has the controls of the city because he offered the kingdoms to Jesus and he said, "Be gone." But we know he controls the cities and the kingdoms. So we know that. We also know that there's some things about in Jacob, or not Jacob, Job, and Job, that there's the guy where Satan was in heaven, and he's like, hey, comes up and he says, hey, God asked him, where you been? And he kind of evades around the question. I've been up, down, around, kind of evades the question, but he had access to it in heaven. Then maybe in Revelations he's kicked out. So we don't really know the whole story of what's going on. Don't get me wrong, the guy's very deceptive. But you know what? I sure don't want to be around a deceptive person, so stay away from Satan. But it just makes you question upon question, and makes you think. So let's go ahead and go to God's arrangements with Adam and Eve in Genesis 3:8. And he heard the voice of the Lord God in the garden in the cool of the day, and that Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God almost amongst the trees of the garden. And the Lord called upon Adam and said unto him, where art thou? And he said, I heard the voice in the God. I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself. And he said, who told thee thou wast naked? And hast thou eaten of the tree? Therefore I commanded thee thou shouldest not eat. And the man said, and the woman who gavest to me with him, and she gave me the tree, and I did eat. And God said unto the woman, what is thou hast done? And the woman said, the serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. Beguiled me, and I did eat. And the Lord God said unto the serpent, because thou hast done thou art cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the sea. Upon thy belly shall you go, and you shall thou eat all the days of thy life. And dust shall thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed of her seed. It shall bruise thy heel, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Well, basically it comes down to as first it jumps up and like 11 says, you know what? God asked him a question, but he's all knowing, so he knew the answer. But why would he question it to give the answer? Maybe that should be a question itself. But as children, for your children, you ask that question. You want to see if they knew what they did wrong. So I guess that's the way it's format. So God, as being the Father, He's trying to tell us children, in that sense, you did something wrong, something really bad. You should never did it. The only commandment. If they were smart at it, they should have just cut the thing down early on and just burned it. We wouldn't be having this problem. He did say cut it down and burn it. Said no eating. So sometimes you got cut things off and stay away from it. Or put up a 50-foot gate and fence and you can't see. So that's all I got on God's reigns Adam and Eve. But the other part in 14 and 15 where God said, the serpent thou hast cast and cursed above all cattle, above every beast of the field, upon the belly shall he go. So did the serpent have knowledge, and did he fly, or was he a little different before this happened? I don't know. So that should be a question. It's a question. And I shall put enmity between thee and the woman. So him and the serpent. So they got something going on there. I don't know, but common sense it says, you gotta strike the heel and all that. But some snakes don't strike heels. Some get the legs and hands. Most time people defend themselves. They go after hands, but so I don't know if that's something that's hidden meaning. Should be maybe come out a little later on, like in prophecy. It can't make sense a little later on. I don't know, but we shall find out. In the punishment of mankind in Genesis 3, and let's start with 16. Upon the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow, and thy concept in the sorrow of thy house, for bring forth children, and they shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. And unto Adam he said, because thou hast hearkened upon the voice of thy wife, has eaten of the tree of which I command thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake, and the sorrow shall eat of it all the days of thy life. And thorns and all the thistles shall bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field, and the sweat of the face shall not beard till the return unto the ground shall waste thou taken, for thou art, and thou dust shall return. And 20, Adam called his wife Eve, because she was the mother of all living things. Okay, now under the punishment of mankind. So basically, she's gonna have problems bringing forth children. So then also a bad thing happened. Thorns shall bring forth thee, and thou shalt eat herbs of the fields. So I don't know what that. So maybe they had problems back then farming. I don't know. But upon thou hast hearkened the voice of wife, and thou eaten of the tree which I command thou shalt. Curse thee in the ground, shall eat of it all the days of the life. So basically, you go eat from the ground all the days of thy life. So basically, we have to eat from the ground. So it can make sense, which we did. But question is, what did they eat before? Did they had to eat before? Maybe they didn't have to eat before, but they did eat the tree of things. So maybe there's other forms of they're getting nurture, not Adam and Eve before this happened. So it kind of makes you wonder. Maybe there's something going off. Something we should know. More questions within questions. So, and that the last one, Adam shall call his wife Eve because she was the mother of all living. So she's the mother of all living. So this kind of question is of all living. Is it all living beasts or is it all life living out there? That's a kind of question. Or is he just in reference to human beings? So as humans, they're all, she was the first of all living human beings, maybe? I don't know. But it says all living. All living is pretty broad there. You could get that definition for everything living out there. So question with the question. I don't know. Maybe it's going to really reveal it later on. Okay, the expulsion from paradise. Unto Adam also and his wife did the Lord make coats of skin and clothe them. And the Lord said, Behold, the man is because as one of us to know good and evil. Thou least put forth his hand, and take also the tree of life, and eat, and live forever. And therefore the Lord sent forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground for whence he came, and she drove out the man. And he drove out the man in place east of the garden of cherubim and a flaming sword, which turned every way to keep way of the tree of life. Well, okay. So now they're talking about the tree of life. Not the tree of knowledge, but the tree of life. So, we know there's two different types of trees out there. So, that's about it there. It's kind of weird. Tree of knowledge, tree of life. So we're kicked out of the garden because their original first sin, the only sin, they didn't have to freaking eat the apple, and all they didn't have is eat the apple. We would have stayed in the garden and still had the tree of life, but we're kicked out and with no tree of life, you die. So hopefully we have a good conclusion. So far, there's no mention of heaven or earth. It's kind of weird that the Jewish people don't believe in heaven or earth. Just on a side note, they believe in something different. I will get more intel later on that, and also we'll get more intel about Jacob and the devil and see what's going on with that deal, because it's kind of the stage is set. We got basically the Adam and Eve kicked out for their bad sins, and maybe Jesus Christ, which he came back, can nullify the original sin for forgiveness. So we got something good going on there. So, but so far it's kind of bleak and not too good. But all I have to say is God is great, and keep up the good journey of life. Have a good day. Take care. Bye.